July 1966. Over the mountains north of Hanoi, Captain Jack Falcon Miller eased his F-4C Phantom II into a shallow descent. Twin J-79 engines roared with 34,000 pounds of combined thrust, shaking the cockpit as the radar scope lit up with faint echoes. Somewhere below, a formation of MiG-17s was climbing fast, their pilots unaware that one of the deadliest aviators of the Vietnam War was already positioning himself high above them. What those MiG pilots didn't know was that the quiet farm boy from Iowa, now peering through his gun sight, had spent his youth chasing crop dusters across the endless Midwest horizon. By war's end, he would achieve 26 confirmed victories, the highest tally of any Phantom pilot, and the most by any American airman of the Vietnam War. But his path to that record didn't begin with confidence or swagger. It began with trouble. Trouble at the Air Force Base in Arizona, where a young Lieutenant Miller, fresh out of pilot school, had pushed a T-38 Talon through a forbidden low-level roll over the parade ground, just to prove he could. The reprimand was immediate. His commanding officer, Colonel George Iron Duke Harris, was furious. But Harris saw something in the boy: instinct, reflexes, and eyes that seemed to read the sky. Instead of grounding him, Harris gave him another chance, assigning him extra simulator hours and advanced gunnery training. What Harris recognized was that Miller possessed the rare combination separating good pilots from great ones: perfect hand-eye coordination, uncanny deflection judgment, and nerves that didn't shake even when the aircraft did. By December 1966, Miller was assigned to the 555th Tactical Fighter Squadron, the legendary Triple Nickel, based at Udorn Royal Thai Air Base. Their mission, Rolling Thunder, the relentless air campaign against North Vietnam. Miller's introduction to the F-4 Phantom II was both awe and terror. The Phantom was a beast, a twin-engine, two-seat interceptor-turned-fighter bomber that could carry 18,000 pounds of ordnance and reach Mach 2. But unlike the nimble fighters of World War II, the Phantom had no internal gun. It relied on missiles, the AIM-7 Sparrow and AIM-9 Sidewinder, and in 1966 those weapons were far from reliable. The first time Miller saw a MiG, he wasn't ready. April 1967, 18,000 feet over the Red River Delta. The radar operator in his back seat, Lieutenant Ron Blake, called out a contact. Two MiG-21s closing fast. Miller pushed the throttles forward, afterburners lit, the Phantom surged to Mach 1.1. But when he launched his Sparrows, nothing hit. The radar lost lock and the missiles flew wild. The MiGs countered with cannon bursts that sliced through the air past his canopy. Miller dove hard, pulling 6 GS, skimming the clouds before regaining control. They made it home, shaken but alive. That night, Miller studied gun camera footage from other pilots and realized what was wrong. The Phantom was being flown like a bomber, not a fighter. He began developing his own tactics: use altitude, use speed, strike once, disengage, lessons that echoed those of another war and another ace long before him. By June 1967, Miller's instincts had sharpened. Over Haiphong, his flight intercepted 2 MiG-17s harassing a bomber formation. Instead of chasing them in level flight, suicide in a Phantom, he climbed above them, cut the power, and rolled inverted. The MiGs passed beneath. Miller dropped, fired 2 Sidewinders at close range. Both struck true, his first 2 kills. From that day forward, the call sign Falcon became legend at Udorn. Miller's combat reports were dry, almost clinical. Altitude, position, missile type, result. But his backseater Blake described something else. He didn't fight angry. He fought like a surgeon. The Phantom was not an easy aircraft to master. It was heavy, it bled energy in turns, and it smoked like a freight train, making it visible miles away. The MiG-17s could outturn it, the MiG-21s could outclimb it. But Miller discovered how to make the Phantom work. He learned to exploit energy advantage, diving attacks from high-altitude, lightning-fast missile passes, never engaging in prolonged turns. He calculated intercept geometry instinctively, his mind solving problems faster than the radar could. By late 1967, he had 5 confirmed kills, making him one of the first Phantom Aces. His reputation spread fast. Air crews whispered that he could see the fight before it began. Commanders started sending him on the most dangerous missions. MiG combat air patrols over the deadly skies of North Vietnam, the Thud Ridge area, where countless American aircraft had vanished in fire and smoke. Each sortie tested his nerve. Surface-to-air missiles, flak, and MiGs filled the sky. Yet somehow Miller always returned, sometimes with missile smoke still curling from his wings. By December 1967, Captain Jack Miller had become the embodiment of what Air Force doctrine would soon call energy maneuvering combat, though he didn't know the term yet. To him, it was simple: don't turn, don't chase, strike like lightning. And as the war intensified, his legend was just beginning. March 1968. Over the Gulf of Tonkin, Captain Jack Falcon Miller throttled his Phantom II into afterburner, climbing fast through scattered clouds. Below, the jungle coastline of North Vietnam glowed orange with anti-aircraft tracers. His radar intercept officer, Lieutenant Ron Blake, calmly called out the range. Bandits, 2 o'clock high, 20 miles, hot. 2 MiG-21s, sleek and deadly, were closing in fast from altitude. Miller's instincts kicked in. He rolled the Phantom right, climbing through 25,000 feet, using the jet's raw power to gain the sun advantage. The MiGs overshot beneath him, exactly as he'd predicted. He rolled inverted, locked radar and fired 2 AIM-7 Sparrows. One missile failed to guide, but the other found its mark. The MiG exploded in a burst of orange fire, scattering debris into the haze. "Splash 1, Jack," Blake said calmly through the intercom. "Copy that," Miller replied, already checking 6 for the second MiG. That day, Miller became the first pilot of the 555th Tactical Fighter Squadron to achieve 6 confirmed kills, more than any other Phantom pilot in Southeast Asia. But for Miller, it wasn't about the numbers. It was about learning the rhythm of the fight. The skies over North Vietnam were unlike anything American aviators had faced before. The enemy wasn't just other aircraft, it was an entire network of defenses. Radar-guided SAM sites, dense anti-aircraft artillery, MiGs using ground control intercept tactics, and a jungle that swallowed wreckage whole. Every mission meant threading through a web of death. Miller adapted. He developed a system that other pilots began to emulate, what they jokingly called the Falcon Loop. It combined altitude advantage, high-speed diving passes, and delayed missile shots at point-blank range where electronic countermeasures couldn't interfere. The tactic worked. During the Rolling Thunder campaigns of 1968, Miller's flight achieved 15 kills in 3 months with minimal losses. His precision was uncanny. Out of 12 missiles fired under his control, 9 struck home, an unheard-of ratio in an era when most American missiles failed half the time. His reports were methodical, free of bravado. Engaged MiG-17 flight at 15,000 feet, north of Kep. Fired 1 AIM-9 at 1,200 yards. Observed impact. Broke right. Second MiG disengaged. But inside the ready rooms, his legend grew. Younger pilots studied his gun camera footage, memorizing his maneuvers. His name became shorthand for survival. Fly like Falcon meant stay disciplined, stay alive. In August 1968, Miller's Phantom was upgraded to the F-4D variant, equipped with an internal 20mm M61 Vulcan cannon pod. Finally, the jet had the teeth it needed. For Miller, who had always believed that close combat required more than unreliable missiles, it changed everything. That September, over the skies of Yen Bai, Miller's formation was jumped by 4 MiG-17s. Outnumbered 2-1, he ordered his wingmen to stay high while he dove through the center of the enemy formation. Cannon rounds tore through the air. One MiG exploded instantly. Another rolled hard right, trailing smoke. Miller's Vulcan roared 6,000 rounds per minute of tungsten fury. Both MiGs disintegrated before the others could react. Back at Udorn, mechanics found holes peppering the Phantom's tail, fragments from near misses. Miller just grinned. Close enough for government work, he said. By 1969, he had 11 confirmed victories. The Air Force promoted him to major, though he still flew as Falcon 1. His skill wasn't just flying, it was thinking faster than the opposition. He knew when to commit, when to disengage, and how to exploit the Phantom's raw power without bleeding speed. When Rolling Thunder ended in late 1968, most pilots rotated home. Miller volunteered for another tour. "You can't teach judgment from the ground," he told Colonel Harris. He was granted his wish, assigned to Da Nang Air Base to support Commando Hunt, the interdiction campaign over the Ho Chi Minh Trail. There, he encountered a new kind of war, one of patience, ambushes, and ghosts in the jungle. The North Vietnamese Air Force operated sporadically, protecting key supply routes. Engagements were brief and violent. The jungle terrain made radar unreliable. Miller adapted again, using infrared tracking and visual acquisition instead of radar locks. In early 1970, he shot down 3 MiG-21s within 2 weeks, all in gun kills at visual range, something almost unheard of in the Phantom community. His ability to anticipate enemy movement bordered on intuition. In debriefs, he explained it simply: you can't chase them, you can't outturn them. You have to think where they're going to be, not where they are. Let the sky tell you the story. The Air Force sent camera crews to film interviews. Magazines called him the new breed of ace. But Miller hated the spotlight. He turned down a stateside tour, saying, "The war's not finished, and neither am I." His backseater, Ron Blake, remembered, "Jack wasn't reckless. He was cold, efficient. I never saw him flinch. He had the sixth sense. He could see the fight unfold before anyone else." By late 1971, Major Miller had 21 confirmed victories, all achieved in a machine that most pilots considered too heavy and too complicated for dogfighting. He'd turned the Phantom from a missile truck into a precision weapon of war. When Operation Linebacker began in 1972, the largest air offensive of the Vietnam War, Miller was exactly where he wanted to be, leading a 4-ship formation into the most dangerous airspace on Earth. July 1972, above Hanoi, dozens of MiGs scrambled to intercept the incoming strike package. Miller's flight climbed high, then dove through the center of the enemy formation, missiles and cannon fire blazing. Within 4 minutes, 3 MiGs were destroyed, 2 confirmed to Miller himself. When they returned to Da Nang, their Phantoms bore the scars of battle: shrapnel holes, burned paint, missing panels, but they were alive. Command reports listed Miller's total at 24 confirmed kills, making him the top-scoring Phantom pilot of the war. The Pentagon wanted him home for good, but Miller refused. "I'll quit when the job's done." 2 months later, during a mission escorting B-52 bombers north of Vinh, his aircraft took a SAM hit to the left engine. The explosion tore through the tail section, but Miller kept control long enough for Blake to eject. He stayed with the jet, guiding it away from a nearby village. The Phantom crashed in a rice field, engulfed in flames. Jack Falcon Miller was listed as killed in action, September 1972. He was 29 years old. His final tally, 26 confirmed air-to-air victories, all in the F-4 Phantom II, remains unmatched in American jet combat history. December 1972, Da Nang Air Base was quiet. The monsoon rains had returned, covering the flight line in mist. Mechanics stood silently beside a vacant revetment where Major Jack Falcon Miller's F-4 once sat. On the canopy frame of another Phantom, someone had painted in white stencil letters, "For Falcon." Back home, the official telegram reached his parents' farmhouse in Cedar County, Iowa, just after Christmas. His mother, Ruth Miller, opened the envelope with trembling hands. The message was brief, formal, and cold. "Regret to inform you." The rest blurred in her tears. But across the Pacific, among the men who flew with him, his name was already legend. They didn't speak of his death. They spoke of how he flew. In the months that followed, intelligence teams reviewed hundreds of hours of gun camera footage from Miller's missions. What they discovered reshaped Air Force doctrine for the jet age. He wasn't just a gifted pilot. He was a tactician ahead of his time. Where most pilots relied on radar lock and missile parameters, Miller relied on energy management and geometry, ideas that would later form the foundation of energy maneuverability theory, formalized by Colonel John Boyd in the early 1970s. Without realizing it, Miller had been applying those principles intuitively in combat. He always began with altitude. "The fight starts high," he wrote in one of his notebooks. He converted altitude to speed, speed to angles, and angles to kills. He understood the Phantom's strengths and limitations better than anyone. He never forced the jet to turn like a MiG. Instead, he made the fight vertical, climbing, rolling, diving, forcing the lighter, slower MiGs to bleed energy until they were trapped. Analysts at Nellis Air Force Base studying his flight data noticed an astonishing pattern. Miller never lost an engagement once he initiated it on his own terms. Out of over 180 combat missions, he was never shot down by an enemy aircraft. The few times his Phantom returned damaged, ground crews found that even in emergencies, hydraulic failure, engine fire, control loss, his flight paths were precise and deliberate. He never panicked. Lieutenant Ron Blake, his radar intercept officer who survived the final mission, later told reporters, "Jack didn't just fly the Phantom, he spoke its language. Every vibration, every warning light, every sound meant something to him. It wasn't reaction. It was understanding." Miller's combat philosophy soon became standard reading at advanced fighter schools. His notes, recovered from his quarters at Da Nang, were compiled into an internal document titled Falcon's Rules. They were deceptively simple. Energy is life. Altitude is power. Speed is freedom. Never fight the enemy's fight. Make him fight yours. Missiles fail. Guns don't. If you see him first, you decide who lives. Win before the merge. These 5 lines became mantras for a generation of aviators. When the U.S. Navy later established the famous Top Gun school at Miramar, and the Air Force created red flag training at Nellis, Miller's footage and reports were among the reference materials used in curriculum development. His tactics, vertical maneuvering, aggressive but calculated positioning, strict energy control, were directly incorporated into modern air combat doctrine. The Phantom II itself went on to serve until the 1990s, but none of its thousands of pilots ever matched Miller's record. 26 confirmed kills in the missile age was considered impossible. In truth, it wasn't the machine that made the record. It was the man who learned to transcend its flaws. In 1973, Miller was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, accepted by his father at the Air Force Academy. President Nixon's words during the ceremony were brief but fitting. In an age of machines, Major Miller proved that courage, intellect, and skill still rule the skies. The medal joined a modest collection back home. His flight wings, a faded photo of him standing beside his Phantom with Falcon 1, stenciled on the nose, and a letter he had written weeks before his final mission. It read, "If I don't come back, don't mourn the loss. Remember that we flew for each other and for something bigger than medals. The sky is unforgiving, but it's also pure. That's where I belong." That letter, now displayed in a glass case at the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, has become a quiet testament to a generation of airmen who fought a misunderstood war. Historians often describe the Vietnam War as the first technological conflict: radar-guided missiles, supersonic jets, electronic warfare. But for pilots like Miller, it was still a test of human instinct. No computer could replace the split-second judgment that decided life or death at Mach 1.5. In later years, retired General George Iron Duke Harris, the same man who once reprimanded Miller for that low roll over an airfield, said in an interview, "He was the kind of pilot you get once in a century. Calm, calculating, and fearless, but never reckless. The kind of man who made an impossible aircraft do impossible things." Miller's legacy lives not only in textbooks but in the flight simulators and training manuals of every modern fighter squadron. His tactics anticipated the realities of the F-15, F-16, and even fifth-generation jets like the F-22 and F-35, all built around principles he lived by: maintain energy, exploit position, and never surrender the initiative. Today, at Udorn Royal Thai Air Base, long abandoned and overgrown, one of the old concrete shelters still bears faint paint from 1968. Faded letters spell 555th TFS. Local farmers sometimes find fragments of metal among the tall grass, relics of a war long gone. But once a year, visiting American pilots place a small flag near the cracked runway, in memory of the man they call the Phantom Ace. Nearly 60 years after his final flight, no American pilot has surpassed Jack Miller's record in manned air-to-air combat. In an age of radar locks and beyond visual range missiles, the kind of close-in duels he fought no longer exist. His achievements belong to another era, one where courage and precision defined victory, and a heartbeat separated heroism from oblivion. At the Air Force Memorial in Washington, his name is etched alongside the greats Bong, Rickenbacker, McCampbell. Beneath his name, a single line is engraved from his own notebook: altitude, speed, patience. That's all you ever need. For those who study air combat, his record is not just a number. It's proof that mastery of fundamentals can still triumph over chaos. And for those who walk through the museum at Wright-Patterson today, beneath the towering gray silhouette of an F-4 Phantom II marked Falcon 1, a simple plaque tells the story: Major Jack Falcon Miller, Ace of the Phantom. 1943 to 1972. 26 confirmed victories. Energy, precision, discipline. The engines are silent now, the sky peaceful. But his lessons endure, echoing across generations of pilots who still look to the horizon and whisper before takeoff. For Falcon,